All right, peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. First, let's talk about the latest out of Gaza, as Vice President Kamala Harris is expected to have some very serious conversations about the latest phase of this violence and trying to call for a 6-week ceasefire. We'll talk a little bit about that. Also, a new AP poll shows that 6 out of 10 adults doubt not only President Biden's mental capacity, but also President Trump, and how it's putting people in a very, very dissatisfied situation. We'll talk a little bit about that. Later on, we check in with Dr. Bridget for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness, as she talks about election anxiety, and as we prepare for tomorrow, which is Super Tuesday among a number of states for this election's primary season. So we'll talk a little bit about that, as well as vitamin D deficiency in Black America. So we'll have all of those conversations, and a whole lot more. Stay with us. It's happening all today on today's edition of The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. There has been a lot happening over the weekend and, of course, today. We're going to first, let me just say this, that we're going to have that conversation. I wanted to make sure we have this conversation about the latest decision coming from the Supreme Court about allowing former President Donald Trump to be on the ballots, as they have decided that the Colorado court system was not right, and essentially overturned that judgment, saying that, look, the states cannot take a presidential ballot off of the presidential candidate off the ballot. That is something that Congress will have to do. So tomorrow, I wanted to have that conversation because I want to make sure I get a couple of expert voices to join us in the discussion. It's just not all over the place. So we're going to have that and the implications of this latest decision from the Supreme Court, especially when tomorrow is also Super Tuesday. And that is a day where a number of about 15 or so states or more are going to the polls, are going to be casting their ballots for the president and for other offices down ballot. And it's a big, big day for the primary season. And we'll certainly bring you up to speed on that as well. So we will have those big conversations tomorrow. But again, I wanted to make sure that we had the right voices in place to have the discussion so we can make sure we can giving you the right information. And it's just not all over the place. So we'll have that conversation tomorrow. Now, today, let's talk a little bit about what's happening out of the White House, as Vice President Kamala Harris is expected to meet with some folks from the Israeli War Cabinet. This is a very, very tense time, of course, we know, in the region of the Gaza, West Bank region because of the Israel-Hamas conflict. And so now we're going to see how the vice president is able to broker some deal, as she's calling for a 6-week ceasefire from Hamas, from Israel, to make sure that the people of Gaza and the West Bank are receiving aid, the necessary aid that they need, and so much more. Here's the latest coming from AP News, and I want to share this with you. Take a look at this, folks. Over the weekend, Harris issued a forceful call for temporary ceasefire deal in Gaza, which administration officials say would halt fighting for at least 6 weeks and also increase pressure on Israel not to impede the aid that workers were trying to get into the region. The White House has been advocating for that framework deal for weeks. Now, according to Vice President Harris, she said, quote, given the immense scale of suffering in Gaza, there must be an immediate ceasefire for at least the next 6 weeks, which is what is currently on the table. She said this yesterday during an appearance in Selma, Alabama, as we celebrated the Bloody Sunday commemoration. Acknowledge, rather, not celebrate, but acknowledge the Bloody Sunday commemoration. She said this will get the hostages out and get a significant amount of aid in. She also said This will allow us to build something more enduring to ensure Israel is secure and to respect the right of the Palestinian people to dignity, freedom, and self-determination. So this is going to be interesting. Now, y'all remember, we talked a little bit about this last week, how the president said at the beginning of last week that they were working on a ceasefire deal, even though many people are saying there should be a permanent ceasefire and not a limited time ceasefire. But this is going to be very, very important because we have been talking about it here, how this particular conflict has stood among a lot of voters, especially Arab Americans and even some Black voters, as a result of how the president has been handling the situation. But we will see. Now, this is going to be a big, big test, I believe, for the vice president, because, this is something she's going into the thick of things. And I'm gonna be real with y'all. This is going to be, I think, a litmus test to see how the vice president handles this very, very sensitive situation in the Middle East. And so today she's expected to host a member of the Israel wartime cabinet, a gentleman by the name of Benny Gantz, who is a centrist political rival of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He's been sitting down with several senior Biden administration officials this week, including Vice President Harris, Secretary of State Antony Blinken, National Security Council Middle East Coordinator Brett McGirt, and Jake Sullivan, the White House National Security Advisor as well. And the president is actually at Camp David. I'm speaking of President Biden. He's at a presidential retreat at Camp David. And so Mr. Gantz, Benny Gantz, is also scheduled to meet today with Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell as well. So they're going to try to figure out how they're going to bring in a ceasefire in this whole situation, even if it's for 6 weeks. Now, we know that the death toll in that region has now been over 30,000 Palestinians, those who are in that area, 30,000. And the death toll of the initial attack was 1,200 people and taking about 250 people hostage. So it's going to be very, very interesting, again, to see how this whole thing plays out. But the vice president, everybody is going to be looking at her. Everyone is going to be looking at the vice president to see how she's going to handle this situation. Crew, I want to get your take, and big shout out to all of you for watching as we're streaming on various platforms. We'll talk about that in a moment. But I want to kind of get your take on what you think of this, and then we're going to take our first pause. But what's your take on this as the vice president is looking to broker a 6-week ceasefire deal? We're going to take a quick break. Share with me your thoughts as we're streaming live on Big Brother Roland Martin's Facebook page and on his YouTube channel. And stay with us. The conversation will continue on the other side here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat to the Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, We're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. First discussion, well, let me just share with you, we are streaming right now on a number of different platforms. Make sure you check us out on our home platform of blackstarnetwork.com. Download the app for free. Follow us on all social media platforms and from at Black Star Network. And, of course, we actually drop something in the bucket for us as we are looking for investors and stakeholders and just overall supporters for the work that we're doing, the content that we're putting out each and every day, the conversations that we're having. You're not getting these type of conversations on any other spot or any other place on the web other than Black Star Network. And the type of shows that we offer as we continue to talk about everything from the culture to the politics to health and finances and so much more, that can all be found at blackstarnetwork.com. Now, we're also streaming on Amazon platforms. You can check us out on Amazon News, on your Amazon Fire TV. We're also on Amazon Prime Video. So make sure you find us on the Prime Video app under Live TV and News, or find us on Amazon.com under Prime Video, then Live TV, then News. We're also on Freevee Network, where we're on now under News for Black Star Network, and Plex TV, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Search for Black Star Network or find us under Live TV, the News and Opinion. All right, folks, getting back to the conversation, we started the discussion talking about Vice President Kamala Harris having a very significant meeting and conversation with just some of Israel's wartime cabinet. She's going to be sitting down with Mr. Benny Gantz, who is a political rival of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, but who is looking to try to come to some agreement within this situation of Israel versus Hamas, that conflict in the Gaza Strip. And this is a major moment for the vice president, especially given the fact that there has been a lot of Palestinian-led anti-war efforts that have been pushed upon the Biden administration. This has not been an easy moment on foreign policy for the Biden administration, not only dealing with this situation in Israel and Hamas, continuing to deal with the situation of Ukraine and Russia. And so we're seeing a number of fires that are erupting all across the globe that America is trying to keep to a minimum. Now, for Vice President Kamala Harris, she's called for a ceasefire, a limited ceasefire, 6-week ceasefire, yesterday in her remarks in Selma, Alabama, and saying that this catastrophe has to end at some point. However, right activists, progressive organizers, some Arab Americans, even within the Democratic Party, were very quick to criticize her remarks and saying that it's not enough, that her demands for a 6-week ceasefire fell short of the complete end to Israel's offensive in Gaza. Abed Ayoub, who serves as the director of the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee, said on the X platform, Vice President Harris calling for a 6-week temporary ceasefire is a very specific amount of time. What she asked for isn't a ceasefire, it's a pause to the genocide. Wow. And we know that Arab Americans, especially in this country, in the state of Michigan, they kind of flex their political muscle, as they've asked for people to sign on as being uncommitted in their primary last week. And they were able to garner about 13% of the vote, a little bit over 100,000 who had voted uncommitted against the president. They didn't expect for that to overwhelm the president's support in Michigan during the primary, but they did want to be heard loud and clear. And guess what, folks? They were. All right, let me go to what you got to say, crew, about this situation with Vice President Kamala Harris and the big moment that she's facing as she's looking to bring some sense of civility and peace in the Middle East. All right, let me do this. Let me take a look at what we got here. And folks are checking in, and I'm so happy to see some new voices and so happy to see some of the legacy crew members. Welcome, welcome, welcome to everybody. Let me see. I saw my man, who we got? Official Sanika. Official Tanika, you said something that I thought was very, very true, because you talked about how is the vice president calling for a ceasefire while continuing to veto ceasefires, shaking my damn head. Yeah, we see that happening. The UN ambassador, she has been voting against all of the latest efforts for a ceasefire, whether it comes from South Africa or from the from other parts of the region in that area of Israel. But it doesn't seem like America has signed on to any type of thing until this moment, where America is trying to set up another deal with Israel. And we know why. We do know why, Official Sanika, because America has a very, very close relationship with Israel. And as a result of that, they're going to try to figure out, this administration is trying to figure out the best way to navigate, to keep that closeness, while at the same time not capitulating to the pressure coming from the American people and more folks from around the world saying America needs to stop this violence and needs to take more of a stronger stance. So it's a very, very tight rope, but I'm with you right there, Official Tanika. Can't call for a ceasefire while continuing to veto ceasefire. Brian Christian, you said Vice President Harris better bring her A game for this situation. Absolutely. Absolutely. Very much so. Very much so. Got to bring your A game. And here's why. Here's why I think this is important. Because all of the talk about President Biden's ability, his mental capacity, his ability to serve another 4 years, where a lot of people are saying, okay, if we vote this man in, is he going to be able to do the full 4 years, or should we get ourselves prepared for President Kamala Harris to come into the picture? And so this being with this one, this might be an opportunity to see how she deals, how she's going to handle foreign policy interests for both America, and also dealing with the interests of the people and dealing with the relationships that's present at the table. All of these things to give us a glimpse. I think this will give us a glimpse of what she could be like as president if necessary. You see all of the conditional terms I'm using. It's not to say that something's going to happen to President Biden, but this could give us a glimpse into that. So I think you're right there, Brother Brian, for saying she got to bring her A game. You don't like my music. You say details of this ceasefire proposal has been sparse, I'll bet it's very one-sided. Come on. We don't know, right? And this is not based on just a bunch of talking. This is we're looking at what is it about this ceasefire proposal, ceasefire deal that the Biden administration is proposing versus the ones that other countries from the UN have proposed? Why have they continued to veto those efforts on the UN front, but then have created something else? We will have to see. And I think to your point, you don't like my music. This is the part where we're going to see some kind of other type of deals being made in this whole situation. Let me see something. Antonio Juarez, welcome to the chat. You said this will always be a perplexed situation. We need to help and prevent this issue to continue. I totally agree. Perplexed, yes. Something can be done. Some things can be done. But it is going to come down to whether it's the political will of the Biden-Harris administration to figure out if something can really happen. But some things can definitely be done. But I agree with you there, Antonio. Again, welcome to the chat. Cindy D, you said Biden and Harris are walking a fine line. It's political. Absolutely. This is a huge point, especially what we're seeing going into tomorrow's ballots, where a number of states are going to be, a number of folks will be going to the ballots tomorrow. It's a huge deal. How will this administration handle this type of situation? Then you got Super Tuesday, very, very political. So we will have to see how Vice President Kamala Harris handled the situation. More importantly, if there's going to be a legitimate ceasefire, based on the reports that I've been reading, folks, it looks like a number of folks are putting the pressure. Jewish Voice for Peace Action, this is a progressive Jewish organization, said that the vice president's comments showed the power of, quote, sustained pressure from the Palestinian-led anti-war movement. But we need a permanent ceasefire and policy change, including halting weapons and ending funding to the Israeli military. This is coming from a Jewish organization, a progressive Jewish organization called Jewish Voice for Peace Action. And they are also calling for a permanent ceasefire, as well as stop putting so much money into Israel's military. And I shared with you last week that $3.8 billion has been given to the past 8 years to the Israeli defense for them to build their military capacity. And so that's been happening for the past 8 years. They still got 2 more years left in this deal that was first brokered by former President Barack Obama back in 2016. So we will see, but that's $3.8 billion. That is the most that the United States has given to any other country. We have given more money to the state of Israel than any other country in our history. And since the beginning, since the founding of Israel back in the 1940s. So we're talking about a very, very serious, close relationship here in that situation. All right, look, I got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's switch gears just a tad bit. I'm going to share with you the latest data coming from a new poll where a number of Americans are feeling less and less enthusiastic about the choices for president, especially with the Supreme Court decision opening up the pathway for President Trump. People are saying it's not just Biden that might have mental capacity issues, it's also Trump, and how that will affect voters to go to the poll tomorrow and over the next couple of months. Stay with us. That conversation is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in. I wanted to switch gears as we talked about what happened, what's going on with Vice President Kamala Harris. And of course, folks, we'll do our due diligence to keep you up to date on that situation. Now, switching over a little bit, because tomorrow is Super Tuesday, there was this major decision that the Supreme Court rendered today, allowing former President Donald Trump to be on the ballot. And the overall conversation about age, mental capabilities is at the forefront of the discussion. There's a lot of dissatisfaction around the fact that we are in this space with our political in our state of politics, right? So folks are not happy with who is standing before us to possibly become the next president of the United States, whether it's going to be President Biden again or whether it's going to be President Trump again. But guess what? According to a new AP NORC poll, more than 6 out of 10 adults say, about 63% say they are not very or not at all confident in Biden's mental capability, or they're not confident in Trump's ability to serve as president. This is coming from the poll, and it's a very interesting look. We've talked a little bit about this, but I want to expand this because I think this is one of the few polls that actually shows both Biden and Trump are not seen in the best light from the American people. And it has created a real problem. It has created a real problem. We know that former President Donald Trump, 77 years old, President Joe Biden, 81 years old, and that a lot of adults are not happy. And the great concern is, as it says in this poll, Biden is too old, Trump is too corrupt, and people may not even show up at the polls. They now, as part of this report from the Associated Press, they talked to a gentleman who is 84 years old. He's a retiree, Mr. Paul Miller. He's 84. He said Biden is too old, and so is Trump. He said he doesn't seem to have the mental whatever to be a president, speaking of Biden. He added that Trump is too old and too half crazy. He said that he voted for Trump in 2020, but he wouldn't do so again. He said, I don't think I'm going to vote for either one of them. I hope somebody else is available. Well, Mr. Miller, it doesn't look like that may be the case, sir. And this is going to be the great burden that this country is going to feel over these next few months. Now, tomorrow is Super Tuesday. And so there are going to be at least 15 states that are going to the polls to vote, not just for president, but also for some of those smaller offices on the state and local level. And people aren't excited. People don't think that these two men have what it takes, the mental capacity to do this very, very highly important, very stressful job of serving as the commander-in-chief of the United States of America. Let me give you some more numbers around this, and then Cruz, share with me your thoughts. I mentioned earlier, 63% say they are not very or not at all confident in Biden's mental capability to serve effectively as president, turning his coming State of the Union address, and we're going to talk about that because that's coming up later on this week, his State of the Union address into something of a real-time audition for a second term. But check this out, a similar but slightly smaller share of 57% of those polled say that Trump lacks the memory and acuity for the job. Wow. Now, again, this poll is by the Associated Press and the Nork Center for Public Affairs Research, and it points to a tough presidential election in which such issues as age and mental competence could be more prevalent than any other political contest in modern times. Y'all get that? Going into the big event, take a listen here, folks. Just 38% of U.S. adults approve of how Biden is handling his job, while 61% disapprove. 74% of Democrats are much likelier than independents, 20%, and Republicans to favor his performance. But there's broad discontent on the way Biden is handling a variety of issues, including the economy, immigration, foreign policy. That's on the Biden side. And of course, people are not happy about the fact that you got a former president who has so much baggage. He has so much baggage. And this is a major turnoff for a lot of Americans. Now, Republicans, according to the report, Republicans are generally more comfortable with Trump's mental capabilities than Democrats are with Biden. In the survey, 59% of Republicans are extremely or very confident that Trump has the mental abilities to be president. An additional 20% are somewhat confident, and 20% are not very or not at all very confident. Yeah. So this leaves us in a little conundrum, folks, about where we stand, especially going into Super Tuesday. I want to take a double quick pause. When I come forward, I want to hear your take on this. You know, what you think about this. 6 out of 10 saying that both of these gentlemen, these men who are coming before us to say that they could be the best president of the United States to take us into a better place, folks are not happy that they have the mental capability, the mental competence to do the job. Do you agree or disagree? Post your comments as we're streaming live right now on Big Brother Roland Martin's Facebook page and his YouTube channel, and stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. We're talking about a new poll that has been put out by the Associated Press and also the Nork Center for Public Affairs Research, which shows that 6 in 10 U.S. adults doubt mental capabilities of both President Biden and former President Donald Trump. So this talk about mental capacity, mental competence, this is not just a Biden conversation. This is a Trump conversation too. And based on this poll, it is high among both party members, both Democrats and Republicans. The Democrats think that Biden is fine. Of course, the Republicans think that Trump is fine. And then each party think that the other person, the other candidate, is not so fine. That's understandable. It's very, very political and polarized. But the problem is, how do we as the American people see it? And that's going to be the thing. How do we, the American people, see it? And as part of this report, the Associated Press, they talked to a number of people. They talked to one gentleman, like I mentioned, from Carlisle, Pennsylvania. Carly, excuse me. Make sure I'm saying this correctly. He is 84 years old. He's out of the state of Pennsylvania, Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And he believes that Biden is too old, and he believes Trump is too old and half crazy. And he doesn't know who he's going to vote for. Now, folks are going to the polls tomorrow. Tomorrow is considered to be, quote unquote, Super Tuesday, where a number of states, a handful of states, are going to be going to the polls. But people are not excited about this election. And the greater concern is, if people are not excited about this election, will they even show up? Will they participate? Will they really show that they care about who is going to be in the big seat? All right, let me get some of your takes on this. And big shout out to the culture crew around this whole situation. Eugene, you checked in, and welcome to the chat, Eugene. You said normally there's a mandatory retirement age for federal employees. However, the mandatory retirement age does not apply to other federal employees like Congress, executive branch, and judicial branch. Yeah, you know what, Eugene, great point. I actually am familiar with that. And that is an excellent point. That is an excellent point. Maybe, I don't know. I hope so. You know, it seems like it's so hard to do simple things in government in this country. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to say that again, folks. It seems like it's so hard to do simple things in government in this country. And when we're talking about having a conversation about term limits and age limits, it seems like you know what I mean, Eugene? It seems like it's just like pushing a boulder up a hill. That it's just the hardest thing to do to have these conversations. But I know why, because a lot of the folks that are in public office right now, especially on the federal level, these are older folks. Now, this is not ageism, so I don't want to get into that place of, well, if you at a certain age, therefore you're too old. But I do think that there is some credence to the idea that after a certain age, when you start to know that your mental capacities, and this is not talking about Trump or Biden, but when you start to know that you're not as quick as you used to be, you're not thinking as quick, you're not understanding things as quick, right? That you're going through serious mental health issues, like what we see with Mitch McConnell freezing up in public and all of those things. Like, it's your time to go. It's your time to bow out gracefully. So to your point, Eugene, it seems like we need to have those new conversations and bring them back into the forefront. Back into the forefront. All right, let me just let's talk to let's also share what else folks are saying. I appreciate you. Now here, Isaac, I really like this one. You said, I'm not trying to anger anyone, but if you ask a bunch of 4-year-olds if they prefer cookies for dinner or broccoli salad, what do you think they will say? I think we need to evaluate our own minds. Ooh. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Evaluate where the American peoples are. But this is what you also said too, Isaac, which I think is very, very interesting. And we're not having quite as much conversation about this point that you're making. You're saying this may be a bit controversial, but I'm concerned with the mental health decline and capabilities of the American people in general. Many people don't even understand our civic system. And we talked about this last week. Some of you are saying, Farajii, we need to have those type of one-on-one civics, American government one-on-one conversations to help people to understand how their government works. How does a bill become a law? Having those fundamental, rudimentary discussions about those things. But to your point, Isaac, That is a huge concern. We've been talking about the fact that you got these two men running for office, but guess what? These two men would not be the two men if they weren't voted for by somebody's or somebody else. So if we were really serious about the conversation about the mental competence, then how is it that Trump was able to get so far and Biden was able to get so far to even get into this position? Somebody had to vote them in. Somebody had to caucus them in. Somebody had to say, you know what, this is the best person for the job. So to your point, Isaac, I think that's the real conversation here is that, yeah, we know people are going to keep running for office because of power, because of influence, because they don't want to seem like they are giving up on their jobs and all of these things. But it's even more interesting to see what is the mental capabilities of the American people right now that we feel like, you know what, these are the two best people because somebody brought them this far. Nikki Haley, she just won in D.C. for the GOP Congress. This is the first election she actually won since being on the election trail. She's feeling very confident going into Super Tuesday tomorrow, right? But I remember when we first talked about the first win of the primary of Trump, and we had that conversation about shared values, right? And looking at those individuals from Iowa and some of the early primary contests and why they decided to say, you know what, we're going to give Trump another chance. And in spite of his 91 indictments and all of the 91 charges and 4 indictments and all of that stuff, they still felt like this guy would be the best person to run the country. That speaks volumes, and it speaks directly to what you made the point of, Isaac, of that mental capabilities. Like, we can't even see outside of the people that's in front of us. So 6 in 10 adults can always say, yeah, their capabilities, their mental competence. But what about our mental competence that we say, you know what? We should put these guys back into office, right? Because if the American people truly said, oh, you know what? These guys are not who we want to represent us. We're going to get somebody else. Nikki Haley wouldn't have just won her first election yesterday. That thing would have been done. But it just happened. And if people are looking for an alternative, then who are we to blame? Who are we to blame? Isaac, you said exactly. Lydia Brown, thank you, Isaac, for posting that. Lydia, you said age does not matter, pushing a gender matters. It's absolutely correct. But you do have to, it's not about age. It really isn't. This is about mental competency. This is about making sure that a person can take on the stress and the strain of doing the job, and that they can still come to the table. They can still be fresh in their thinking. They can see situations from a different viewpoint, you know, that they're evolving. But this is talking about the mental capability. Being president of the United States is the most stressful job, man. You have all of these people that are looking for you. And I'm talking about being president in 2020s, 2024, moving forward with social media, partisan politics, and all of the stuff that we see happening within the culture of this country. Can you imagine being the president of the United States in this time? We're not talking about 1950 America. We're not talking about 2000 America. We're not talking about 2016 America. We're talking about 2024 America. And think about the culture of this country right now, from Black people, white people. Think about the conversations that we have from everything from politics to education to healthcare. Think about all the stuff. Think about the proliferation of social media, how major of an influence entertainment is. I mean, and you're the person that's responsible for guiding this country into a better place, socially, economically, within foreign policy. That's a lot to take on to the brain. It's not an easy job. And you want something, and we should all want someone who is able to do the job, not just in body, but in the mind first. I am him. I think I'm saying that right. You said we are to blame for who's on the ballot. No one else. Ajax Ada, you said look up Project 2025 from the GOP far right wing. You will see why it is important to vote for anyone but Trump. Also, Biden has done an outstanding job. All right. I appreciate you for posting that. Thank you. And Tiana, you said we have bigger fish to fry. This is the distraction as always. It's a bigger fish to fry. But here's the thing, though, Tiana. We won't be able to get away from it. As I'm closing out on this conversation, we won't be able to give away from this. This is such a major moment. And again, we will have to see how this plays out, of course. But on the Biden side, we're going to see how he's going to continue to handle this, how his administration is going to handle this, how the vice president is going to handle this. On the Trump side, we know we got a sense of the type of chaos and all of the type of things that is going on over there. But this is coming down to the American people. And I'm going back to what Isaac said. This is coming down to the American people. This is not about candidates anymore. This is about us. And unless we, as the American people, as I don't, whether you consider yourself citizens or not of this country, but if you're living within these boundaries, these borders, and you are physically a part of this country, and you have some level of political consciousness, social consciousness, economic consciousness, then you realize that this is coming down to us at this point. No one else. All right, look, I got to take another quick pause when we come forward. Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about health and wellness. We're going to be checking in with Dr. Bridget, MD. But one of the things she is going to talk about is this situation around election anxiety. I don't know if anybody's been feeling a little anxious, a little nervous, and I can tell that some of us in the chat over these past few days, fear is very real. Anxiety is very real. We do not know what to expect over these next couple of months, especially with all this talk about political violence and everything else. This is driving America crazy. I'm going to share with you some of the things that healthcare professionals are saying that we should do. We're going to get some insight from Dr. Bridget. And of course, I want to hear what you got to say, that she talks about election anxiety and vitamin D deficiency in Black America. So those conversations are up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20036-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. And for the second half, folks, we want to switch gears to have a conversation about our health and wellness. And we do that every Monday here. So let's get prepared for another installment of this week's Reclaim Your Wellness with Dr. Bridget. Hi, Doc. Good afternoon. How are you this afternoon? You're looking like you're bright and sunny over there.
Yeah, a little warm weather does everything for you, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's good to connect with you once again, Doc. Let's talk a little bit about this election. You and I were just kind of chatting a little bit earlier today, and in preparing for today's conversation, you brought up I didn't think you wanted to talk a little bit of politics, but you kind of brought it up. You were like, should we talk about the Supreme Court? And I was like, I'm going to be talking about it tomorrow, but I thought about that and I said, okay, well, maybe we could talk about election because a lot of states are going to the polls tomorrow. Yes. To cast their ballot. And we just shared how there was a new Associated Press poll that said that 6 out of 10 adults just don't feel confident about the mental capabilities of both Biden and Trump. And so I wanted to at least have a conversation about election anxiety. That's how it's being coined, election anxiety. And really, and more importantly, like, how do we get through this time of very, very hot button topics, a lot of sensitive issues? It's requiring us to really be in tune to where we stand on a number of conversations. And so there's a lot of stress that's attached to being an election. Now, according to the Jet Foundation, they're talking about election stress and election anxiety. They're saying that 60% of registered voters in the United States say politics are a significant source of stress. And some even say they've lost sleep over it.
Yes.
And when people talk about the idea, especially on this platform, as part of the crew's normal conversation, the idea of Trump being back into the White House, Project 2025. Oh my God, did you hear what he did today? Did you hear what he said today? All of this, and according to the Jet Foundation, they said the news about headlines and social media posts, the increased cost of living, climate change, gun violence, all of these things will create some real major mental health challenges. So what's your take on this, Doc?
Well, what people what Farajii isn't telling you is that I told him I was moving to Ghana.
And that's when I didn't even want to acknowledge the fact that you told me that you were moving to Ghana. I was like, wait a minute, what? I thought she was serious. And I was like, wait a minute, let me look back and let me just put this together. I said, oh, she's saying that if Trump gets into office, she's going to be heading back home.
Yeah. and I'm sure I'm not the only one. The fact of the matter is that election anxiety is a real thing, though it is not a bona fide diagnosis. Election stress disorder is something that we're using in the medical community to coin the experience that people are having over this. And not only is there this 60% of registered voters are having this significant stress, but there was another study done around Black adults, and the election stress went from 46% in 2016 to 71% in 2020. And I can only imagine what it might be right now. And so not only does it affect voters in general, but it definitely affects Black voters particularly. And we need to figure out, how do we manage during this time?
So how does that happen? Like when we say election anxiety and stress, and I mean, to read that people are losing sleep, it's interesting because a lot of folks will say, oh, people don't care. But is that necessarily true? Like, is it that we really do care and we're just not voicing it? Or is it just that, I mean, where did people get this idea of that Americans don't care about what's going on politically? Because I found that to be a little bit not true.
Well, I think when it comes to the day-to-day headlines, what's happening, we're often taught, right? We're taught that this isn't going to really affect you. Your vote doesn't really count. This isn't not really important. It's just the media. But the fact of the matter is, people have anxiety and stress over this because they are concerned about how this is going to affect them. They are concerned that this might affect their children, their job, their income, their taxes, the money coming in and out of their house, let alone their personal rights and health care. And so we are worried about this, let alone where, for Black people in particular, our positioning in this country, and what voice do we have, right? What voice do we have to make sure that we're safe in a country that has an ongoing history of isolating and pushing down and bigotry when it comes to Black Americans? So I think when it comes to the daily rhetoric, people don't want to hear all of that. But when it comes to the actual outcome, I think it is stressing people out.
Look, we're going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's continue to have this conversation with Dr. Bridget ND for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness. Folks, we're talking about election anxiety. Are you feeling anxious nowadays? Are you losing sleep? Are you feeling stressed from this talk? Now, here's the thing, folks. I want to make sure that when y'all come in and tune into this show, that it doesn't add to all of that. It doesn't add to your fear. It doesn't add to your stress. So help me to help you, so that way when we have these conversations, it's in a positive direction, if that's possible, as much as it is informative. And of course, we still have to keep you engaged. So I want to know all of that. What are you feeling around the election and going forward in this country? Post your comments as we're streaming live on Big Brother Roland Martin's YouTube channel and Facebook page, and we would love to hear what you got to say. So stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
An angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
There's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Joined by my sister, Dr. Bridget, MD, for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness, as we talk a little bit about election anxiety and how to handle it. And for those who may not be familiar with the term, it simply means that when you feel anxious, you feel nervous, you feel stressed from thinking about all things political, especially in this election season, and also especially, Doc, when so many people are saying that this is going to be the most consequential election of all time, that this is the greatest election in American history. Now, it may be that. It actually may be that. But to think about it and to process it emotionally and mentally, it will do something to you. So the Jed Foundation had put out some information. And if you aren't familiar with the Jed Foundation, it's a nonprofit organization that protects emotional health and prevents suicide for young people, teenagers, and young adults as we look at these things. And so even on that level, Doc, having conversations about politics, the way we have conversations in our household, how it affects the young people, whether it's the children and more importantly, the teenagers that are in our households, because we might be the cause of that source of stress and anxiety for the next generation.
Absolutely. You know, there are many times that some houses have the news on 24 hours a day. right?
Mm.
And that can cause a lot of stress for young people. But let me also say that when you're dealing with this election stress disorder, when you're feeling overwhelmed, you're not quite sure how things are going to turn out, taking control of the situation is key. For some, taking control of the situation is getting quality information. Okay. And so as we were going to the break before, you're hoping that what you're providing does not cause stress for people. I think what you offer is quality information for people so that they can feel confident about what they're getting, about that it's not slanted or leaving out significant information. So for some people, too much information can cause anxiety, but for other people, not having enough information can cause anxiety. So I think you offer an incredible service in doing what you do because you can fill in the gap for a lot of people that are trying to figure out what's going on.
But you know what? And I appreciate that, Doc. And I also know that, especially with Black media, like there is a sense of urgency. Been doing Black media for a long time, and and one of the things that I try to keep at the forefront of my mind is that everything is not as urgent as we want to make it, right? Like the fire alarm never stops ringing.
Right.
And when you're looking at life in Black America, it's like, I see some of the comments in our chat, and people are like, why, we might be talking about something very light, like, something else. And people say, why are you not talking about this? And it's like, damn, bro, like, do you got to have the fire alarm on all day? Because that does something for me as the host and as the presenter of this information, but then that also does something for people who are tuning in, and they're like, if we're always talking about, man, let's talk about the homicide rate. I used to make this joke in Baltimore that folks always want to talk about how many people got killed today and how many. I mean, this constant sense of urgency that is placed on us, especially as Black folks in this country, it's just, there's never a time that we just turn it off. Because the moment we start going light on information, if we start talking about, hey, did y'all see this movie? Or man, y'all not talking about nothing real. And it's like, bro, nobody is staying on a constant state of alert 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's just not sustainable, or that's just not healthy.
It's not healthy. And the fact of the matter is there's no better way to control people than by enlisting fear. Okay. And so it is really important to create a balance. If we don't know anything else about our government, for every court case, there's an appeal. For every, mandate that comes down, there's there's always something that kind of slows down the progress. Nothing happens fast in America.
That's true.
So the fact of the matter is we need to approach this with calmness. If you're starting to feel overwhelmed, make sure that you're able to collect yourself, realize and understand what is making you feel overwhelmed, and take a breath, and then divert your attention. Find a book. I mean, at this point in time, I always say America doesn't read, right? Pull out a book. How many of you have a favorite book right now that allows you to escape from all of the stresses going on in the world? Get that favorite book out, divert your attention to something else, play a game on your phone, and better yet, just get off of your phone, right? And so, there's no better way. And if you go to some more of the conservative, quote unquote, media, they do have this push and this stress and this anxiety, which is causing rage, it's causing fear, it's causing anxiety in white America, which is why we're seeing a lot of what we're seeing. What does Trump do? He creates fear. He creates
chaos.
And that creates control. There's no better way to control people than by doing this.
That is absolutely true. And the word chaos has been coming up in the political talk more and more. And to be honest with you, Doc, I've been thinking about this for the past couple of weeks. How we're going to have a conversation about what some social scientists and political scientists are calling an American nihilism, which is where you start to we're seeing more and more Americans who are diminishing the institutions that keep us in a civilized space. They want to see certain institutions completely implode, and so there's this nihilistic, tendency that we're seeing right now that has added to this ongoing uncertainty, the anxiety, the nervousness that so many of us are feeling right now. And if you're waking up and you're already feeling tense, if you're waking up and feeling like, man, my heart rate is not well, or my mindset, I'm not really at ease mentally and emotionally, and you're turning on the news, as you say, you turn it on your phone, you turn it on the news, the talk among your friends and your coworkers and your circle is about all this anxiety stuff, that it becomes overwhelming. It really becomes overwhelming. What are some of the things that we need to kind of mentally prepare for, like look out for, as we wake up each and every day to face a new day? How should we start the day off?
Absolutely. So start in prayer, but if that's how you choose to start it, but that's the way I prefer to start it. Start your day in a place of calmness and peace, and collecting, meditative, however you choose to address it. But I think what's really important here is being able to recognize what's going on and have a plan, right? And so it's consider what, when, and where. What exactly is stressing you? Because if you don't recognize it, you start going through the day and you're just a ball of nerves. You're overwhelmed, or you're angry, you're on edge. Find out what exactly, be able to pinpoint what exactly is stressing you. If you're turning on the news in the morning, maybe that's not what you should be doing. Is it that point where it bothers you? Do you need to wait until later in the day? Is it that one coworker that always has some, thinks that they're providing the best news, but they just put you on edge? Figure out what it is that exactly causes the stress. So what it is, when is it happening exactly? And so let me back up. Is it the Trump story? Is it the abortion stories? Do you know exactly which aspect it is? Is it the election, or is it, different aspects of the news? When does this happen? Is it when you're watching your TikTok or watching the news or what have you? And then once you know what the stories are, because it might not be everything, what the stories are, when you're encountering those stories or that person or what have you, then how do you combat it? So what it is, when does it happen, and how? So you might decide that it's reading, talking to friends, you want to play a game, have boundaries for your social media. It's incredibly intrusive. You never know what's going to show up on the next swipe or screen or what have you. Unfollow unhealthy content. You're not always aware how your algorithm changes over time. And if you're like, oh, why does this keep showing up? That's in your algorithm. It doesn't show up for everybody. Okay. And so if you're like, I really don't want to see this, and I did this recently, it wasn't politically related, but it was, some of the celebrity news stuff. After a while,
Oh my
I'm like,
God.
what the baby looks like. I don't need to see this. Okay. You can take that off. You can unfollow that. You can get that off of your algorithm. And so you can see less of it. You can have a really positive, beautiful algorithm with your social media. You have to choose it though, okay? And then just limit your screen time, but have a plan to combat what stresses you out.
That's some good stuff there, Doc. I'm gonna tell you something like that, because that means it's more intentional. I know we got to take a quick pause. We want to get some final remarks from you, Doc, about this, and of course, let's talk about vitamin D deficiency that is so prevalent in Black America, and I'm hearing more and more conversations about this, and it just makes me wonder, damn, is there anything that we can eat in this country that's not good? We're going to have that conversation. Stay with us, folks. You're tuned into Reclaim Your Wellness with Dr. Bridget, MD, right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hi, Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Your money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by our chief medical correspondent, Dr. Bridget, MD, for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness. As we talk a little bit about election anxiety, election stress, and how do you handle it, especially during this time of year, especially when we have so many issues and topics to discuss and so much at stake. It is a very, very stressful time in America. And Dr. Bridges has given us some excellent ideas on how we can just kind of just take the air out, to just kind of wind down, getting ourselves in a place of finding ourselves in a place of mental peace and civility and, you know, just really relaxing. Because as much as this election is consequential, as much as these elections are important, guess what, folks? This country has gone through a lot. Black people in this country, as Black people, we have gone through a lot. And God will, we'll be able to get through any type of rough patches and dark moments to get to the other side. So that, and I say that, Doc, because underneath all of the talk about Trump or Biden and all of this talk, I'm not hearing the talk about faith as much, right? It's like fear has taken over, faith goes out the window. And I'm talking about even from our most religious folks in the community, in our community. It's like, boy, they just sounding the alarm. And it's like, where's the faith that things are going to get better? Where's the faith that we're going to get through this moment together? And I'm not sure if that's because of election anxiety or if that's something else. What do you think?
There are two sides to that. I think, my appropriate professional answer is that, there's a change, over time about people's faith in this country, as far as how many people actually attend church and rely on their faith and that's not necessarily a good thing, right? That how they view religion in their life has changed in this country over time. On the other side of it, when I talk to my friends of great faith, they simply say to me, well, it's the end of time. So that don't make me feel any better. So that's what I said. You don't understand how much, I'm definitely, I have a lot of great friends, that support so many people in the faith community. And that's their answer. It's the end of time. So.
And that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot for us to take, right? Like
or to put on somebody, right?
I mean, that is a lot. Like people, and I mean, see, this is about to get into a different part of the conversation, but
I know I shouldn't have even said it.
No, it's cool. It's fine. It's cool, but that is a lot. And I've heard that myself, and I'm like, bro, you just can't throw that around as if, you know what I mean? Be like, yup, it's Judgment Day, and you're like, bro, that affects everyone.
Like, and when I've said, well, what do you mean? What are you going to do about that? I'm going with the rapture. Well, come on. I'm talking about today. Today. Might be today. Oh,
it's a lot. It really is a lot. And not to make light of scripture and all of those things, right? That's not the. But I think that, like with any religious understanding, it comes basically down to a person's interpretations due to their personal view of the world, their experiences, right? So it's gonna come across much differently versus a religious scholar. If a person says, hey man, it's Judgment Day, the rapture is coming. Hey man, get your life right. And it's just okay.
But I think what we also see is that those dear friends of mine are less bothered by all of this. And that's really the lesson here. That, as you were saying, that as Black people, we've been through a lot. This country has been through a lot. We will get through this as well. I do appreciate their comments because they're less bothered. And I think if you don't get anything else, get that they are staying calm in this space, that they know that, they are covered and that we will get through this and that we don't need to get wrapped up into all of this political.
That's true.
It takes, like I said, it takes forever. You never know what's going to happen. For every court case, there's an appeal. So we do need to be less bothered.
That is true. Yeah. That is true. And I think having that approach is important. I just want to make sure that when folks do have an approach like that, that you got to find the balance. I mean, there's a difference between being less bothered and then completely just kind of removing yourself from being informed of what's happening, right? Not to say you got to be in a basement somewhere and you got stuff on the walls and that whole nine, but sometimes we check ourselves out of the situation and say, well, it is what it is, you know what I mean? But that doesn't give people faith. I think what gives people faith, what gives people some sort of peace of mind is understanding how things work, understanding that there is a process to things, right? Like you recognize that there is a larger force, a larger scheme that's working out, but at the same time, understanding what your role is. Because if you check yourself out and say, well, I'm gonna just let it be, then that can even create an anxiety, because if you're not putting into some type of work, you're not going, it just doesn't feel like you're really addressing the problem.
I agree. And I have to say that no one should check out so much that they don't vote. Okay.
Right.
If you have election anxiety, do what you can. Do what works for you. Someone else might be digging in and getting as much information as possible. You might pull back a little bit, but you might be talking to that person. Let them do their part that makes them feel better. And maybe just getting some of the information from them makes you feel better for yourself. But don't get so detached that you don't vote. Also, don't get so wrapped up that you become the troll on social media. Okay.
Oh, right.
So consider especially with some strangers that you don't know, don't be that person. Okay. And then for the people that you do know, consider do you value the relationship? Then you might not want to engage. You can very easily unfollow a person without unfriending them, because maybe you don't need to hear all of their back and forth when it comes to the political climate. But to be a troll and to attack and then to answer every little thing that you see going on, it's not healthy. You know, it can tear churches apart. I've seen it. Okay. It can tear friendships and families apart. I've seen it.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Despite what people think, there are a good number of Black folks that like Trump. And that has destroyed families as much as it's destroyed, white families as well, where, you've caused a line that you can't cross. So don't be the troll and be engaged in that. Pull back. You're not going to solve any of these problems by causing infighting with people on social media.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Doc, let's take a quick pause. And then when we come forward, let's talk a little bit about vitamin D deficiency in Black America. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair. Take your seat to the Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, you're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, checking in with Dr. Bridget, MD, for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness. And Doc, let's talk a little bit about vitamin D, how it's a major issue with the health of Black America. I've seen a number of articles about vitamin D deficiency. Talk to us, why are we finding that vitamin D is so deficient in our culture and among our people?
Absolutely. So some recent studies have shown that 75% of Blacks have a deficiency in vitamin D. It's incredibly important because it helps us absorb calcium and phosphorus, helps build our bones. They found that it actually helps to kill and reduce cancer cells, as well as reduce infection and inflammation. The reason why it is particularly why so many Black Americans particularly have a low vitamin D level is because we get a great amount of our vitamin D from the sun. But the melanin in our skin absorbs those UV rays. And so the process of creating the vitamin D is interrupted because of that melanin. And so we often have a lower amount. But as I shared, it's really important that we get vitamin D into our diets and into our bodies. The reason why this has come up most recently is because there was a man in the UK, a white man that ended up passing away from vitamin D overdose. So he was taking too much of it. And so when so many of us have low vitamin D, are often placed on vitamin D supplements, I think it's really important to have a conversation about what we're taking, what are the symptoms of having too much vitamin D, and then what can we do to get the right amount of vitamin D into our bodies?
So what are some of the with this case of the guy in the UK, was it he had so much vitamin D in his system, but I'm assuming he probably went to a doctor, right? I mean, the doctor probably said, hey, you have a vitamin D deficiency. And then I think he did what a lot of people would have normally do. Like, okay, let me get some vitamin D vitamins.
Right.
Let me start taking those.
Right. So he was found to have a vitamin D deficiency, and for whatever reason, he was taking an excessive amount of them. And he started to build up calcium in his blood. So the vitamin D helps you absorb that calcium. He had too much calcium building up, and he ended up dying from a heart attack and kidney disorder. So he went into the hospital. They found that his level was the highest that the lab could actually even measure. So potentially even higher than that. And within a few days, he ended up passing away. So I think it's just really important to understand when we do some of these supplements that we need to have a better understanding of what we're taking. And particularly I've seen with some health systems that they're no longer automatically testing your vitamin D when you do your general labs. So make sure that when you go in that you're getting your vitamin D level tested. And then if you're taking a supplement, go in 8 weeks, 12 weeks later and make sure you test it again. Because it's really important to make sure you're not dealing with anything that could end up causing death or any illness. Things to look out for. So let's say you are taking your supplement, you're taking it as prescribed, that if you start having increased constipation, if your appetite starts to deplete and you start to feel dehydrated or fatigued, you're urinating more, you're getting more irritable, and you notice muscle weakness, you might want to get this checked out. Some of the symptoms of hypervitaminosis D, which is too much vitamin D, sound a lot like diabetes. So for a diabetic, they might just think that their diabetes is off. Their blood pressure is going up, they're urinating like crazy, they're thirsty like crazy. They might just think, oh, maybe I need to get my glucose tested. Make sure you're checking your vitamin D as well.
Okay. Now talk to us a little bit about this other part, Doc, that because for darker skinned people, how melanin, affects how our body processes the vitamin D. Give us some insight on that, please.
So the more melanin that you have in your skin, right? So the more melanin you have, when your body starts to absorb UV rays, being in the sun, which is the best way to get the vitamin D, that's how vitamin D is actually created in our bodies. The melanin decreases that synthesis of the vitamin D. Okay. And because of that, we don't absorb it as well. We don't get the same level of vitamin D as someone that has fairer skin. So whether you are getting more sun exposure so that you do get that opportunity, or whether you are getting it from your diet, okay, there aren't a lot of great ways to get it. So keep in mind oily fish like salmon, okay, red meat, egg yolks. And keep in mind, we're often telling people not to eat so much egg yolks, but egg yolks. And then there's fortified items, fortified milk, orange juice, cereal. Those are ways to get that vitamin D. But keep in mind, think about your own diet. If you are a vegetarian or a vegan, you might be struggling with this, right? If you're no longer drinking milk because you're lactose intolerant, you might be struggling with this. If you're no longer eating cereal because you're over 10 years old, you might not be getting, you know what I'm saying? You really consider, there might be multiple reasons why your vitamin D might be low. And I have to say, I've never had a Black or brown patient come into my office that had a normal vitamin D level, ever.
So this is something that we've been dealing with and something that we will have to deal with for some time.
Yes, absolutely. Wow. But I want to make sure we do it safely, because a lot of times some doctors are prescribing a supplement, okay?
Yeah.
And those supplements there are different ways of doing it. Some of them might say take 6,000 units daily, do it for several weeks to boost it up, and then we check it again in a couple of weeks. Other ones do this 50,000 international units once a week, and then say, let's check it again in about 8 to 12 weeks. Okay. But some others say, hey, just go to the store, get some vitamin D, and you'll be fine, which I suspect might have happened with this man who had too high of a vitamin D level. And so be aware of what you're taking. Make sure you're checking to see if it's actually helping. Is your vitamin D level actually going up? You want to keep it in the 30 range. I believe this man that passed away was like 380 or so. You want to keep it in that 30 range, and vitamin D is good for your body. So you don't want to just blow this off. You want to be able to try to find ways to get it into your system, and to be able to, as we get older, where the people over 65 are at greater risk. People of darker skin are at greater risk. get it in your diet, get it in fortified items, take a supplement if needed, but find out where you are, get those basic labs done, ask the doctor to make sure that that's in your lab work, because you want to reduce inflammation, right? Infection, reduce cancer cells. It's good for your bones. Like, these are all really important things about, I often have people that when we get their vitamin D levels up, they're less achy. They often say that they just feel better, they're less achy. And so we want to make sure that we're doing good for our bodies with vitamin D, and making sure that we're not causing harm along the way.
That is so important. That is so important. And I'm gonna go back, and I know we got like a minute or so, but
Mhm.
that the importance of being very intentional with our diet is it makes all the difference in the world. And based on what I'm understanding from you, Doc, is that what you're
Mhm.
saying?
Absolutely. There's so much that we can control. There's so
Yeah.
many ways that you can be empowered. And like I said, if you are not going counterculture, you are not doing right. Okay. And so if you're not eating foods that can help build your body, the food is not meant for just your taste buds. Food is meant to fuel your body. And one of the ways you can fuel it is getting that vitamin D. I don't eat a lot of meat. So for me, it's going to be salmon. If I was, I'm a flexitarian. So, I still eat fish occasionally, but for people that are vegetarians or vegans, they have to find ways to get that into their system.
Yeah.
Many of them aren't going to drink milk, obviously, whether it's orange juice or cereals or other supplements. It's really important that we don't skip this aspect. And plus, you might just really feel better at the end of the day.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Doc, we gotta have a conversation about the whole lactose intolerant and gluten-free situation. What?
We talked about it a little bit, a couple of weeks
No, but
ago.
yeah, but I feel like this. It's just like the marketplace right now for. I'm saying let's outside of gluten free, lactose intolerant, like the alternative milks and the
Hmm.
alternative liquids out there. Like it's just interesting to see. It's from almond milk and oat milk and all of that. And so when I'm hearing you talking about vitamin D, one of the recommendations that I see a lot of like health websites and other spaces say is like, oh, drink cow's milk. But if you don't drink cow's milk, you know what I'm saying? You could certainly do salmon. But if your lifestyle, if you're eating or your diet is veganism, vegetarianism, or like you said, like a flexitarian, or there's something different, then you gotta take an extra step to say, okay, let me figure out how to do this within the boundaries of my diet, right? Because
But a lot of
everybody just doesn't eat the same.
no, without a doubt. But a lot of these alternative milks are vitamin D fortified as well. I mean,
Okay.
today I had oat milk and a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and there you go.
That
I
that
did
and,
my
and
part.
you talking about somebody's 10-year-old diet?
I know, but it was so good. I don't do it often, but it was so good. I don't do it often.
No, look.
Everybody right now was like, that sounds kind of good.
No,
So
no. You know what I had? Like Frosted Flakes with, and I'm talking about these ain't just the regular Frosted. I had some like healthy Frosted Flakes with oat milk.
there's no such thing as healthy frosted flakes.
Yeah, it is.
Frosted?
Organic
Okay.
corn flakes, organic cane sugar, and sea
Okay.
salt. That's all that was in there. That's all. It was
Wow.
clean.
Wow. I love
Clean.
Hey, see, and it can be done, and it was so good, right?
Let me tell you something. I'm a cereal guy, so I could eat like 4 bowls of cereal at one time.
Really? Yeah. No, I hear you.
You know what I'm
No, let me
saying?
tell you, getting that sandwich and dipping it in the milk, you can't mess with
Oh,
that.
you
It was
taking this to the next level. You're taking this to the next level. All right, let me tell you. All right, Doc, is there going to be an after chat? Are you going to talk about healthy relationships today? Talking about vitamin D? What's going to be on the agenda for the
Absolutely.
after
No, we're
chat?
doing a great guest who is a balance yoga instructor. She has an incredible weight loss story. She lost 100 pounds, and our conversation is loving your body and mind. And so the most important relationship you can have is with yourself. So I'm very excited to talk to her today. You can see us on Instagram, but we're on YouTube now as well. So go to Dr. Bridget's Wellness Reclaimed at 7 p.m. Eastern and join the conversation.
Hey, Doc, I'm going to hit you with something real quick. You ready? Have you ever heard the terminology, and I just came across this, and I know we got to close out, body neutrality? Have you heard that one yet?
No. Neutrality?
Yeah, body neutrality, where it's like body positivity is where, you think of your body and you think highly of. Body neutrality is that they're saying that this is a growing mindset within the health field, where you accept the body that you have. You understand that your body has shortcomings and flaws,
sure,
but you accept the body that you have. And essentially you're like, it is what it is. Like, this is my body.
So this is a California thing?
No, it's not a
No. That's not a Baltimore term. That's not a Baltimore term. That's not. We don't say that in Baltimore.
No, we don't. I'm just saying. They saying it is like another phase. Some people will go say body positivity, but there's this new phenomenon of body neutrality. And I just read a Cambridge, and I was like, this is pretty interesting. Like, you accept what your body can and cannot do, and you're okay with that. You know your body ain't top shape, but at the same time,
I think there's still some changes that need to happen there, because neutrality to me says, it's neutral.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't like that. Like, whatever your body does, if it wakes you up in the morning, if it gets you where you need to go, if it's feeding you, then you should be positive about that body. So
right. Absolutely. Folks, make sure y'all follow Dr. Bridget on all social media platforms. Dr. Bridget MD, you can follow her. She does some great work. She's always having some very important and pertinent conversations about health and wellness, and y'all will certainly benefit from her. Don't try to become her new client, because she got enough clients that it is. And she travels all over the country. Let me stop playing. She travels all over the country talking about everything from family health to cannabis and so much more. So just follow her and check her out. But she brings so much to the culture, and we truly appreciate having her here on the show each and every Monday. Thank you so much, Dr. Bridget.
Absolutely. Thank you, Farajii.
You're welcome. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. Thank you for all of you for checking in, the illustrious culture crew. Make sure y'all do your due diligence. Go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com. Download the app for free. Follow us and drop something in the bucket. And we truly appreciate your support. Also, we want to invite you to join. You can follow me on all social media platforms. You can follow me at The Real Farajii on Instagram, at Farajii on the X platform, and Farajii Muhammad on Facebook. I would love to connect with you there. And of course, follow Big Brother Roland Martin on all social media platforms as well. Stay tuned. Up next is RMU, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So check them out there as we are getting ourselves ready and ramped up for Super Tuesday tomorrow. So make sure y'all check him out. I'm sure he's going to have some conversation about the Supreme Court decision and so much more on tonight's show of RMU. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong, stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here, only here, exclusively here on the Black Star Network. Have a great evening. Talk to you soon. Peace.